This is one of those moments where things are often messier than everyone says they are, right? Things are often like they're just often a lot messier. So let's talk about the messiness of some of the stories around the DC riots. So there's a guy that you might be hearing about named John Sullivan. By the way, a lot of this comes from Jason, our former Twitter guy. He's still our guy. He's just formerly Twitter since we don't have Twitter. And so he did a great job. And also I'm going to shout out to Max Blumenthal, who wrote an excellent article. But there's a guy named John Sullivan. He's also going by Activist X, Activist John, and Jaden X. The reason you're hearing about him is there's kind of this couple narratives going around about whether he is he an agent provocateur, or does he have a political agenda, and is he on one side or the other? I believe the correct answer is both. I think he is an agent provocateur motivated by leftist ideology, which we'll get to. Why are people talking about the guy? Well, he was at the DC riots. In fact, he was on the front lines of the DC riots. He actually is the guy that filmed Ashley Babbitt being killed. And he was with a woman named Jade Sacker. Now, Jade, oddly enough, was making a documentary about John and his brother James, which we'll get into. So that's why they were there, at least ostensibly. Now, he had his footage that of this stuff was featured on CNN. CNN, Anderson Cooper had him on. So here's, you've probably seen this video going around. I'm not going to play the whole video, but they're talking about how Trump did this thing, and here's Anderson, and he's showing the video of some of this stuff. And now the guy filming this again is Jaden X. They've got his name up here. He's the activist. Now, Anderson actually interviewed this dude. Here he is. I think this is, I'm not sure. I think this might be Jade, but I'm not sure. But they interviewed this guy, and they interviewed him as if he was just a documentarian there, paying attention, just not, just there to document events. That's what he was there for, allegedly. Anderson didn't really do much research into him, but they did show him as the founder of Insurgents USA, which we'll get to in another moment. But there's actually some issues with this guy, and there's some oddities, we'll say. One of them is he's actually seen in his own videos as inciting the violence himself. He encourages police officers to leave by kind of like, the mob's gonna, I'm paraphrasing, but the mob's gonna hurt you, you really should leave, man. Like, we can help get you out. Like, I don't want anyone to get hurt, don't want anyone to get hurt. You should leave. At one point, he's yelling that he's got a knife and let him to the front of the crowd. I'm not sure what the argument is. Maybe he's going to use it for something. I don't know. But people are letting him through because he's claiming he's got a knife. There's a scene of him breaking a window in celebration of breaching the Capitol. He's yelling stuff like, fuck this shit up, and let's go, you guys are savage, and we got to get this shit burnt. He's yelling all of this kind of stuff to encourage people to do violent things on the front lines of the riot, right up until the moment Ashley is shot. Like, right up until that moment, he's there yelling this stuff, ginning up violence and trying to get people to do stuff. He also seemed to be in some sort of chat, some sort of chat group. People are claiming was with Antifa. I don't know if there's direct knowledge of that, but he was in some sort of chat group. And I'll show you this. If you want, you can go watch some of these videos yourself. We're not going to play all of them. But in this video, let's see if we can even get sound going. Maybe not. I don't know if you guys can hear that or not. But we'll back up. We'll back up on the video. Yeah, you can't hear it. That's fine. This is This is a video of him and Jade. And she comes up to him in this video and she says, "We did it. You were right. We did it." So this is the filmmaker saying, "You were right. We did it." She's talking to John Sullivan. And John returns to her and says, "Dude, I was trying to tell you. I couldn't say much." And she says, "You were right." And he says, "You just have to watch my chat." Right? And then oddly later on in this video, she says, "Wait, you aren't recording, are you?" And he says, "Oh, I'll delete this shit." Obviously he didn't. And so we get to see it. Links to all the stuff. We always put links to the stuff that we show in the show notes. So you'll get to see all of it if you want. But so this is going out. Now it turns out that this guy is a leftist that spoke at BLM rallies. Let's see. It's a couple things. One, here he is speaking at a BLM rally, threatening to rip the president out of the White House. So again, we don't have to watch this video, but he's speaking at a BLM rally doing this. He also was present in, where is it? Here it is, in Utah. Remember this? Remember in Provo, Utah, the guy who shot into the white SUV? Well, here is John standing there. He actually knows this guy, and a few days later, he actually organized a rally.
I don't think that these are showing up on the screen.
Oh, my mistake. I switched it. Sorry.
Yeah, when you said here he is at a BLM rally threatening to rip the president Trump out of the White House.
Here he is at the BLM rally. Yep, there we go. Sorry about that.
And he in that video he yells, you know, "We're going to rip Trump out of the White House."
Yep. We're not playing. I'm going to play in the audio, but yeah, he's yelling about it, right? Sorry. And here's the other one I'm showing. Here's the picture. This guy's shooting into the SUV. This guy here is John. He's friends with this guy. He ended up, John, again, like I said, ended up organizing a rally in Provo. Shortly after that, he was actually arrested for that rally, for some of his behavior at the rally. Here's his website, Insurgents. You can read all about but you can see it's all about the truth, how Trump planned a coup with the Proud Boys to storm the United States Capitol. Now, this is rich coming from a guy who was there inciting the violence himself, right? But you can check out the site. It's basically a leftist site. He's promoting kind of the ideology you would expect on the left. Insurgents USA, join the revolution, blah, blah, blah. It's formed in response to the George misspelled Floyd tragedy. So that's this guy. But things actually get interesting here. So this, by the way, the story gets kind of weird. So it turns out that the filmmaker is filming because there's a rivalry between this guy and his brother, James. Now, they're both from Utah. His brother James is on the right, as is the rest of the family, and is a pro-Trump supporter. In fact, his brother James helped organize the Stop the Steal rally in D.C. And James has been saying John is a left-wing infiltrator, basically from Antifa, and he's been throwing his brother under the bus, accusing John of being a left-wing infiltrator. And this plays into the narrative, obviously, that the right is now having. So the right is saying, look, this guy's Antifa. He was part of this riot, and he was the instigator, and Antifa was here. So that plays into this idea that Antifa was responsible for all the violence. However, again, I'm going to shout out to Max Blumenthal. Does a great job investigating stuff. There's an article I will show here really quickly if you are interested in more details. This article is on the Gray Zone from Max Blumenthal, and it is called "Chaos Agent Right-Wing Blames U.S. Capitol Riot on Notorious Instigator Banished by Black Lives Matter." So the banished by Black Lives Matter is interesting. So this part, it turns out that this guy, yes, he's got a rivalry with his brother. Yes, he appears to be left-wing, but the left-wing groups didn't like him either. And you can see what Rebellion Baby has said. Now, this is a new post, and you might say, well, they're just saying this after the fact. He says, "Our first thread about John was intended to help protect leftist protest communities from this harmful behavior. Since John's little stunt at the Capitol building during D.C. insurrection, we have more to talk about." And there's a whole thread you can read here. But let's look at an earlier thread. This was posted in November of 2020, before all of this. This is the leftists. This is leftists saying, we have reason to believe that a likely infiltrator / agent provocateur by the name of John Sullivan, or activist John, is attempting to insert himself in the Seattle protest community. So this guy, by the way, he got, after his Provo rally that he organized, he was arrested. And after he was arrested and released, his brother James got a phone call from Black Lives Matter. Now remember, James is on the right. James is pro-Trump. The Salt Lake City chapter of BLM called James and tried to say, please help get your brother out of our community. And according to James, he says, that was actually a weird phone call. They reached out to me and they said, hey, this is what John's doing. We're trying to get this stuff done, and he's getting people hurt and arrested. You know, they don't need to be arrested. These are good people that are going to prison because John would incite violence. This, by the way, I'm getting this from Max Blumenthal. So John was barred from the Utah activist community, or at least ostracized from the Utah activist community, and he moved up to Portland. But then eventually he ended up in Seattle. So you can see that Seattle then said, hey, Portland doesn't like him. Salt Lake City doesn't like him. You guys shouldn't like him either. He's a problem. So the reason that I'm bringing this up, there's a couple resources if you're interested in this stuff. One is, you can, not that one. One is you can look at the Donald, and there's lots of information people have done compiled lots of interesting information about John Sullivan if you want.
Where's the Donald? What's the Donald?
The Donald.win. It probably used to be a 4chan.
It used to be a Reddit. Where is it at
Reddit
now?
Or something. The Donald.win.
Okay, thank
you.
That's
the URL. Yeah, the URLs we'll put in the link in the description. But there's a lot of research here. Now, of course, this is a generally pro-right. Obviously, this is a pro-Trump thing. So they assume that John is Antifa. Max, as much as I like him, obviously Max is generally pro-left and anti-right. So he kind of assumes that he's an unaffiliated agent provocateur who has stirred up stuff on the left and stirred up stuff on the right and doesn't really have a political agenda. Now, I think the truth is probably both. I think the truth is that he is an agent provocateur. He does just want to stir things up, and he's motivated by a radical leftist agenda. But this says something about the media, I think. It says something about the media and their honesty. I mean, with the exception of Max Blumenthal, there's just this blatant disregard for any kind of journalism. Like, no one's bothering to look at any of this. And again, I don't agree with Max Blumenthal, and I do think he's biased, but at least he is being honest and like really trying to look into what's true about this guy and what's not true about this guy. And I think it says something about the state of tensions that we're in right now. This guy, so just to be clear, this guy didn't help BLM's cause. When he was in the BLM stuff, he didn't help their case. He fed into the narrative that they were violent, and obviously we on this show do think that they were a lot of violent, and we see their rhetoric, and there was a lot of violence, and like, okay, fine. But he certainly didn't help that. He went in and agitated and tried to create more. He wasn't helping them have a better public. He wasn't helping the public perceive them any better. He certainly didn't help the Trumpers. Storming the Capitol was undermined their goal. It interrupted the legitimate legal process that they were hoping would work. Totally turned people against them. Gave the cathedral an excuse to crack down on them, got a bunch of people banned from Twitter. He certainly didn't help their cause. So he's not helping either side, although I do think he's motivated based on what he has said and based on his website and stuff like that. He looks like he's motivated from the left, but he's just trying to cause trouble. He's kind of like a collapsitarian on the left. He wants to bring about a civil war, and he's willing to be the spark that starts the trouble. And sparks only work if you've got, material. Like you need, I don't know, you need like an oxidizer and fuel, right? So with, if you don't have gunpowder, so here's a better example. We were camping recently. It was rainy. I could have thrown a match on the ground. Nothing would have happened. But in the right climate in California during a dry summer, if I throw a match on the ground, you know, millions of acres will burn, or where hundreds of thousands of acres will, like, it'll just take off. We're at a time culturally right now where sparks like this, who may have always existed, people who've always had, maybe he even has mental problems, there's some suggestions of that, people who've always had this provocateur bent to them and want to cause trouble. You know, those elements don't do a lot of damage if society calms down. But right now, I think we're sitting on a powder keg. So this guy and guys like him can jump from one side to another and just cause absolute chaos because the fuel is there. We're there. He's the spark that can really start this, and we are primed for a spark. So I just wanted people to know the details about what this is, who this guy is. You may hear stuff from the left that he's unrelated to them completely. That's not true. You may hear stuff from the right that says he's completely Antifa. I don't think that's true, but I do think he's motivated by that. So I want people to be aware. There is also a narrative, both sides, by the way, interestingly enough, for the anarchists in the classroom here. Both sides, there are conspiracies on both sides that think he's a Fed. Both sides are like, I don't know. I think the guy's a Fed. He's probably not a Fed, but both sides are worried about him being a Fed. That's all I have to say about him. I don't have a lot of opinions about it. I just want to get the information out because, man, it is two completely different movies.
It is two completely different movies, and you're not going to see the legacy media covering this. They're happy to have him on, like on Anderson Cooper, in any way that supports their narrative. To have him on and pretend like he's just there as an observer and filming things. But I would be so shocked if they did an expose on him and even did half of what you just covered and showed the footage of him threatening to burn shit down, he said, and how he threatening to pull Trump out of the White House before the election even. He said, we're not going to have the election. We're going to pull Trump out of the White House. They're not going to show that stuff, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, I did this that was a very high level, quick high level overview. You can dig deep if this article from Max Blumenthal is long. He's one of the only people who's kind of jumping off the movie script and like, well, I see the movie and I like the bias of the movie, but I'm a little suspicious that this is the only movie. And he's like at least kind of willing to do real journalism and look in. He's done just a tremendous job researching on this kind of stuff. So, yeah.